we have seen the deployment of serious force of government and serious hand of government. I saw as we were being escorted to a number of places. We have seen the National Police Reserves in the place that we visited, even in the irrigation scheme. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, I wanted to even invite our attention to a more raw and a more grievous issue that is going on in the counties of Kisumu and counties of Kisumu and Kericho. And Mr. Speaker, the issue of Sondu is an issue that perturbs my mind, because I've been trying to keep in touch with every information that is coming from the ground, Mr. Speaker. As we speak right now, Mr. Speaker, there are 6 people who are dead. Mr. Speaker, 10 wounded and hospitalized in Nyabondo and Kisumu hospitals. 11 houses that have been claimed to be of Luo, people of Luo's descent, have been touched, and this was happened this morning. Mr. Speaker, in Sondu town, there are 3 major business premises that have been burnt down today. And Mr. Speaker, as I speak right now, 200 people have been displaced in Sondu of Luo descent. And Mr. Speaker, you can find this information in ACK Church in Genge, and others are housed at Saka Primary, Mr. Speaker. This concerns me, Mr. Speaker, because the issue of Sondu is an issue that has been there with us for the longest time. Maybe people are not familiar with this issue, Mr. Speaker. It's an issue that is associated between 2 issues of conflict areas. Mr. Speaker, one is the issue of periodic attacks by the Kipsigis community on the Luo community on the issues of cattle. But the more overarching issue, Mr. Speaker, has been the issue of the contested border points between these 2 communities. We know very well that, Mr. Speaker, during the time of the regime of the late President Moi, this issue escalated very fast to a serious tribal clash that first started by the attack on the Luo communities and then escalated to the point whereby retaliations led to the killing of the other community, Mr. Speaker. During the time of President Kibaki, as well as during the time of President Uhuru Kenyatta, we saw a bit of calm among these 2 communities. But this part of new attacks on the Luo communities at the border, Mr. Speaker, has emanated in the wage of what was called maandamano. I remember that on 7th of July this year, there was an attack that was perpetuated on the Luo community by the people that come from the other side of the border that is contested in Kericho. And Mr. Speaker, many of the Luo communities, out of the 8 people who died, all of them happen to be the Luo, of the Luo community. I am a national leader, Mr. Speaker, and I don't want to tribalize this just because I happen to come from that area. It is indeed wrong to tribalize this kind of conflict, because that kind of ethnic wrangle can end up bringing down a nation. But Mr. Speaker, I must say that the kind of silence that we have seen in the presidency on the issue of Sondu is wanting. I say wanting because the president of this country has appointed a cabinet secretary who is supposed to deal with issues of this magnitude. Mr. Speaker, when the cabinet secretary who is in charge of interior and security went to Sondu, Mr. Speaker, he did not take time to sit down with the leaders on that area and deal with the overarching issues of these tribal killings. Instead, the cabinet secretary, Mr. Speaker, ended up just sitting with the police administration. And this happened knowing very well that when the clashes started, the police were supporting members of the other communities to facilitate this kind of crimes, Mr. Speaker. They were on TV and we saw this, Mr. Speaker.
What is your point of order, Majority Whip?
Mr. Speaker, sir. under Standing Order number 105 to appeal to my colleague, even if he has grounds for substantiation. Let this motion, Mr. Speaker, bring us together. This motion, Mr. Speaker, contribute towards peace. But, Mr. Speaker, when we use this floor to then state categorically that the police is aiding one tribe against the other one, we are not rising to the level of this House. I do not think that any police commander has the capacity to see two youths and say these ones are Luos and these ones are